everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. My name is Andy Wilson, and I'm the Executive Director. We have such a great podcast for you this morning. Want to introduce Dallas Counts. Dallas, welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville.
Thanks, Andy. Man, I'm really excited to be here.
Man, I'm so glad you're here, and you will too when you hear the content we're about to discuss today. And I will tell you, lean into this, get comfortable, because Dallas, I want to thank you for being here. And you really worked hard on all the content that you have shared with me already this morning. And I'm looking forward to walking our viewers through all this wonderful stuff. So are you ready, Dallas?
I'm super excited for this content.
All right. Now, but before we get into this, I want to introduce this guy to you, okay? I mean, he's really an amazing guy. Dallas, let's talk a bit before we get in about what have you been doing for the last 15 years?
Oh, man, Andy, I've had a wonderful last 15 years. So about 15 years ago, I joined Walmart, and I started at Walmart in asset protection, learning all about operations, but I really found my passion when I moved into merchandising. I moved into merchandising about 2 years after starting and spent about 10 years at Walmart in merchandising in food mostly, and then I also did a little stint over at Sam's Club. Also really, really fun. For all my people over at Sam's Club, miss you, love you.
All right.
Last 2 years of my Walmart career, I spent leading our entertainment, toys, and seasonal site merchandising team.
Right.
So it was a wonderful journey over there. I learned so much about our operations, so much about merchandising, and then getting to bring that all together with my e-commerce experience. You
know, isn't it exciting that merchandising, being a merchant?
Oh, yes.
I spent almost 30 years at Walmart, as you know, and most of that was operations. Well, the last 12 was in HR, and that's a long story. But anyway, but you know what? I never stopped being a merchant, ever, And Sam, he always wanted us. He said, "I don't care what your job is." I remember he used to tell the attorneys, I want you to be a merchant," and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely. That's the culture that I got to be so thankful for, to breed. So.
Yeah, it's a merchandise-driven company. You hear Doug McMillan say it today. You hear all the people say it today. Okay, now, we're going to talk Omnichannel, of course, today. Now, so you've recently made a move to another company, so tell us about that.
Yeah, super excited about this move. So I recently joined White Spider, who's a local company here that was founded here to work with Walmart and specifically within the e-commerce space. And so they really work with bringing suppliers and Walmart together, because there can often be gaps that are hard to fill and understand. And so I recently joined them in a new, unique role.
Okay.
Historically, White Spider has worked very specifically with suppliers.
Right.
But my job over at White Spider will be to work with the retailer. So in this instance, I'll be working directly with Walmart, where I'll get to go in and help understand what are their pain points, what's the challenges that they have. And then the fun part about this is I get to then collaborate back with our supplier partners to see how can we help close those gaps.
So you're working at White Spider, but your main focus is Walmart.
That's right.
That's awesome. And I hope all of our Walmart people, we'll make sure we share your number and email to all of our guests. But that's pretty cool that you have one focus, and that's Walmart, and to work with them was wonderful. Well, we're so glad you're here, and we want you. And this omnichannel conversation we're going to have today, it's for all retailers, it's for all suppliers, not just Walmart. So, correct about that?
Absolutely right.
So, because this is great. Well, we have some really key topics today that we want to talk about, and so let's talk about those topics, and then let's just dive in deep. Okay. So let's do that. So the first topic is omnichannel and the customer perspective. So before we jump into that for a moment, I really am looking forward as a customer to hear your perspectives on all that. Okay, because we're all customers, and then secondly, we're going to talk about retailers and suppliers, their role in the omnichannel experience, right? What are their objectives? And then what's going to be great is that we're going to end up with you sharing your experiences and insights, I'm sure from Walmart, involved in that now on the other side, the analytical side and all that. So how's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay. All right. So let's do this then. Let's get the expert here and let Dallas start talking about omnichannel and the customer perspective. So Dallas, share that with us.
I mean, first, I just have to say the one thing, if I didn't learn anything else at Walmart, was it's the customer first, always, right? And so I felt like that is the perfect place to start when talking about omnichannel retail.
You're going to be successful. You already get that. And not too many people, not everybody gets that. They're getting it. But Sam even taught us that. And I don't want to go back, but I remember one time, I got to say this. This is such a great story. But I remember chairman of a huge supplier. We had our shareholders meeting, and which Walmart recently had, and I remember Sam said to the chairman of this supplier group, and some of the people will remember the story, will know who I'm talking about. But they said Sam told him he didn't understand who the customer was. He said he thought Walmart was the customer, and Sam said Walmart is not the customer. The shopper is the customer. Is that what you're talking about today?
That's absolutely right. And
awesome.
Centering ourselves on that concept of who the customer is going to be invaluable as we talk about omnichannel retail. And the reason I say that too is omnichannel retail is evolving at such a rapid rate today that the customer and how we think about them also has to evolve at a rapid rate. If we want to serve the customer, we have to make sure that we're changing our thought processes and we're staying caught up at the same rate that they're adjusting. And so that's kind of why I wanted to talk about the customer first in omnichannel retail.
Good. Go for it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think just defining omnichannel retail is a great place to start. And to me, this will be my take on what omnichannel retail is. I'm sure there's an official definition, but in my eyes, what omnichannel retail is really meeting the customer where they want to be met when they want to be met. So whether that's in a store, whether that's online, whether it's on an app on a phone, maybe it's on social media, maybe it's at an event, whatever it may be, but making sure that as a retailer or a supplier, we understand where does the customer want to be met. And the challenge here is in omnichannel retail today that I see is it's not as straightforward as it used to be. Used to be you did, traditional advertising, you wanted to bring people into a store, and that's how you would interact with your customer. But today, you don't just interact with your customer just in a store setting. And so everything from a fulfillment method of are we shipping, delivering, picking up, to how are we talking to the customer? Is it on, Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Are we doing it through a streaming service? Is it through a podcast?
Yeah.
How are we interacting with that customer today, and how do they want to be interacted with?
Right.
Is what I think we should really kind of understand, and that will help us understand what is omnichannel retail.
I read and heard Tom Mars at Walmart say this. He said, the closest store to the customer is in their pocket, their phone. Is that? I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I know this morning I pushed an app and ordered something, and it will be delivered tomorrow, and that's pretty cool.
That's super cool, and I think even with that, like my wife and I have gotten to that. We're doing 3 or 4 orders a week now, right? Like we're getting on and ordering from various different retailers. But the other evolution that's really interesting that I think that is being pushed in the industry today is this in-home delivery.
Okay.
So how does a customer, how do they want to be served? A part of that omnichannel retail, there is now this new capability by Walmart where they can actually deliver the product not just to your door, but they can put it in your refrigerator, they can put it in your pantry, wherever you want it.
Right.
Which is going to continue to evolve how the customer wants to be met.
Right. I think it's really cool. I'm a cyclist, and I was doing a gravel ride a couple weeks ago and went to a small town close to Bentonville, and so it's where this is one area they were doing drones, and so in Pea Ridge, Arkansas, I was watching the drones take off, a slingshot out, and then I was watching the slingshot catch the drones when they were coming in. And Walmart has and other retailers also have a drone. Have you tried that experience yet?
I have tried it. It was actually fascinating the very first time. I was still at the office when Walmart had one delivered to the home office, and everybody came out of the building and watched this drone come in. Yeah. lower their package down, and it was fascinating. But even on my street now, I've seen drones come deliver, at least a handful of times in the last month, deliveries to residents just on my cul-de-sac.
It's pretty cool to be a customer today, isn't it?
It's super cool.
And what I love about, there's so much technology behind all of these delivery process and experience. And we're going to get a bit into supply chain and talk about that in a few minutes. Anything else around the customer perspective?
No, I don't think there's anything that I would say at a high level at this point. Just more as we get into some of these deeper topics, there's going to be nuances that I think that will be fun to kind of dive into individually.
All right. Well, the second objective that we want to spend some time on is the objectives for retailers and suppliers in the omnichannel retail experience. So again, the customer critical. And that's why we do what we do. Everything we do is for the customer, and I'm so glad that you're taking all of that knowledge and understanding over to your new role, because that will connect so well back to the Walmart side. So let's talk about the objectives for retailers and suppliers. So that's where we really get into the nuts and bolts of this.
Absolutely. So I think as I think about the objectives for retailers and suppliers, I tend to go through this funnel of how do we engage with that shopper like we were talking about, and then how do they come through the journey into an actual purchase. And so at the top of this funnel, it's all kind of about customer acquisition. And so this is a really interesting topic today, because customer acquisition, as I had said earlier, used to be maybe about a commercial and getting somebody into a store. But that's not how simple of a customer acquisition is today. Today, with all the different mediums that we have that customers are engaging with at a very rapid rate, how do we bring those customers and tell them about the product or service that we offer, whether we're a supplier or a retailer? And then from that, how do we then get them into our ecosystem so that we can then give them the information they need to then transact on that service or product that they need? So at this top funnel, I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation just on how do you acquire or inform people about your product or your service. Okay,
so how do you do that? How's the best way for a retailer and supplier to communicate to inform that customer?
I mean, that is a great question, and it's not an easy necessarily one to answer, right? So as we think about that customer today, with the different disparate ways in which they're engaging, we now have to have, as a supplier or retailer, strategy for each one of these channels.
Okay.
So if I'm a customer going on Google to search for a product, I have to have a strategy of how do I want to engage with that customer on Google. Is it a specific product? Is it a service? Is it any type of different product there? I have a couple different ways I can do that, right? I can pay for it through, search engine marketing, or I can try to get that through organic search results with a search engine optimization. And so those are some just within that. But then you start getting into how are they engaging with our products on social media? Is it direct to consumers? Is it going through a retailer? And so I think understanding each of these layers is going to be pivotal for the supplier to understand, how do I want to allocate funds, which I think is where we're really going to get into some meat of the conversation. Because the funds we have to allocate as a supplier or retailer today can't all go to one channel. We have to then start to understand, how do we break up our investments to go through? Do I want to invest on Google? Do I want to invest on Instagram or TikTok? Do I want to do a commercial? Am I doing a podcast? How am I trying to acquire and inform that customer, that acquisition? And I think this is a real big challenge today for retailers and suppliers, and when they work together, to be able to align on what are the priorities for each of those, the supplier / retailer, and then making sure that, again, you're always keeping the customer at the center of this. And so learning how to use those investment dollars that the retailers and suppliers have effectively across the channels is going to be the pivotal point that we need to focus on, and it evolves daily. There's actually one of the things Ryan Reynolds, I love what he has done. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the businesses he had, but he had Aviation Gin and a few others, and he has generated more of his wealth through his investments than he has through his acting career. And they've come up with this thing called fast advertising. So fast advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it, and I read about it in your article, actually, your details. I was going to ask you about it, so go into that because that it was pretty fascinating. So go ahead.
So to me, this is what's really fascinating. But also the challenge that suppliers and retailers have is today, because we ingest information at such a rapid rate, it's how do you stay relevant? And so Ryan and his team, what they were setting out to do was, how do we take current events and then immediately within a 24-hour time period, turn around and speak to the customers about these relevant events, but also inject our product or service and how that it makes sense. Mm. And through that, they were able to gain a lot more views and interactions, impressions with their customer base than someone that's maybe sitting around saying, hey, let's think about this strategy for 3 to 6 months.
Mm. Yeah, because the time has passed at that point. You've missed the window.
That's
at
exactly
that point.
Right.
Now, so as part of your role working at White Spider, working with Walmart, is that will you sit down with the supplier or with the retailer, and will you walk through these different channels and your recommendations and how to navigate these channels? Will you do that with them? Is that part of your role?
Yeah, some of my role will be to sit down and work with the retailer to understand how are they thinking about how they want to, again, invest and how they want to grow these different segments.
Right.
And then what I also am looking to do is spend time with our supply base to understand what are they doing, and so that I can try to help close this gap, saying, hey, like, retailer, your suppliers are wanting to go do X, but we don't have the capability of doing that today. Right. So how can we help build that functionality or that capability in tandem, either with the supplier or with the retailer, so that we can make everybody successful?
Right. Well, this is excellent. And you're really opening up, I think, if as from a retailer and a supplier, and in order to reach the customer that we began with, there's all these multiple channels, and then how you spend those resources in these channels in order to get what you want, and that's a return, and you grow your revenue and profitability. So huge role you have in order to navigate this with the retailers and suppliers. Was exciting. Okay, now this is really good. This is really, really good. So you've talked about this. You've talked about the channel integration, I would call that. Now, also let's talk about, as we get a bit deeper into this, okay? Because this is really good. Let's talk about supply chain. Let's talk about inventory, because that's your largest investment as a supplier, as a retailer supplier. So talk about how you've talked about the channels on growing your business and getting to the consumer. Let's talk supply chain and inventory a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been one that, at the same rate that customers are changing how they interact with the retailers, it's also how fast we've had to change our supply chain, right? If you think about the suppliers and the retailers on this aspect, they've had to keep blistering pace. And as you know, this is not one that is easily done overnight.
Right.
Supply chain takes more time, more investment, more capital. You have to build physical resources. And so I think this has been an interesting one, interesting conversation as the retailers and suppliers are evolving. So from a retail side, I love what Walmart has done with taking their stores and making those into fulfillment centers. But at that same point in time, that puts new constraints or new pressures on replenishment. It puts new pressures from the supplier standpoint of how they're placing their product, where they're placing the product, making sure that they're not putting their product in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? Because as we know, how fast a consumer gets to their product is key, right? We can't take a week, 2 weeks anymore to deliver a product. We need to be getting it in 2 days or less. And now with, the delivery from store, it's hours.
It is. Yeah.
And so the thing that I really see within this space that's going to be key is, from a retailer perspective, the balance of where we put our inventory and what assortment we put where is going to be really important. And I think that goes back to the supplier standpoint to understand, how do I think about what goes into a store versus what do I put into an FC? And historically, you tried to put as much as you could into a store, right? You wanted to get as much assortment as you could in there so that you could be everything to everybody. But now that we're leveraging those, the retailers are leveraging those as a fulfillment center, it actually becomes a little bit more difficult to put everything in there, because now your rate of sale on a product might go too fast, and then you don't have anything on the side counter for a customer to buy that's in the store.
Right.
So it's really interesting to see, how do we think about evolving this, and how do we think about making sure that we've got the right product at the right time. And actually at White Spider, we have a program called DCP, which is all about helping suppliers understand fulfillment channels and making sure that they've got the product in the right place, and that we're distributing that inventory, that massive investment that they're making, efficiently.
Right. Correct. Well, I can see this is critical, and just it is just as critical, and it's not more critical than the customer, because they're number one, but it is critical to success of your business to have the inventory. And you're right, it's extremely complicated. So this new program that you have at White Spider, and what's the name of that?
It's called DCP.
Okay, so what's that stand for?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah. It's okay.
Now, forgive me, I'm only 5 weeks in.
That's okay. Well, that's all right. Well, it's not important, but you know what it is. Well, so you're able then to take this program and help the retailer and supplier.
That's right.
Know where their inventory is, the rate of sale of that inventory, and how much of that inventory they should have, and where they should have that inventory.
That's right. It really it kind of comes down to the fundamentals of how are their sales coming in? Are they FC sales? Are they in-store sales? Are they pickup and delivery sales?
Okay.
And within that, then we can help them understand very pinpoint geographically that there may be a challenge in Colorado where maybe we're not holding enough inventory at the store versus the FC. Okay. And the intent here is really just to make sure that we help them maximize. Because the other thing is, as you were talking about, the customer is always the best, right? We've got to make sure that we're giving them a good experience. Well, if we don't have inventory in the store for them to buy, we're gonna fall down on our experience. Right. This also comes back to advertising too, right? So if I'm a supplier and I'm advertising on a retail platform and I'm driving this customer engagement, but then I don't have the product available for them to purchase how they want to purchase it and where they want to purchase it, then that's a fail point.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. Well, these are huge. These are huge things that you're sharing, great information that you're sharing. And so this integration of technology, data analytics, the collaboration between retailer suppliers, all that's critical. And that is really what you're doing. That's your role, isn't it? That's this whole integration from technology to data analytics and inventory and all. That's critical.
And you said something there, Andy, that I want to hit on.
Sure.
You said the word collaboration.
Right.
And I think that's something that we cannot talk enough about, because for all of us to be successful, whether it's the supplier or the retailer, or it's agencies like White Spider that are coming in, we have to be able to collaborate. The only way that we're going to be successful and to be able to continue to serve the customer as they want, it's going to take that ability for us to sit down, have those conversations, and understand what those pain points are and share fluidly between the two. Right. We can't have these walls go up between retailers, suppliers. We have to now more than ever be able to sit down and collaborate. And I love that word, the collaboration word, to be able to uncover what is preventing us from being best in class for our customers.
And Dallas, I think you'd be great at that. I really do. And I'll tell you why I think you'll be great at it is that you spent 15 years, your first 15 years in your career working with a customer, working with a major retailer, working in different areas in merchandising and all of that. So you have a great understanding of that. Secondly, now you're with an analytical company that can take all this data and look at all these different channels, and then how you position yourselves for success. And of course, the customer wins. And then when they do, so does the company, the retailer, supplier, no question. So that's wonderful. Now, there's a couple articles I want to call our guests' attention to at dbbnwa.com. That's our website. And there's two articles strategies that take your brand from DTC to omnichannel success. And the second article is the importance of technology in omnichannel strategies. We're talking about both of those. So not only what Dallas is sharing with us is critical, but for some reading. And then also we will also be publishing an article about this podcast. So there'll be more information at our website. So check that out. Now, Dallas, again, you have shared some really excellent information so far about two really critical objectives, and one is the customer. I love the customer perspective that you shared, and you've really talked about, the importance of the customer. Everything we get up and do every day is for the customer, and you shared that. The second thing, though, I think that's so critical that I know our listeners and our viewers will love all that you've talked about is the objectives for retailers and suppliers. Great detail inside all of that from the standpoint of looking at all the different channels, talking about supply chain. All of that is excellent. Now, with your vast knowledge of all of this, you spent over 15 years working on the retail side, which is awesome. Now you're on working with the analytics side of the business and how you're going to help suppliers and retailers to really serve that customer very well. So, what are your final thoughts? I mean, you've given us a lot of great information. If you were to say, okay, to the retailers, suppliers, and to our listeners and viewers today, here are three things. It's critical. Sum all this up. What would those three things be?
Yeah, absolutely. To sum that up, I mean, we've talked about it a ton, and I don't know that I need to keep hitting on it, but if you don't keep the customer at the center of everything you do, you're probably not marching in the right direction, right? So that's the number one. Never lose focus on the customer. Number two is really going to be about speed. How fast, how long are you taking to make these decisions? There's some great quotes out there. It was Jeff Bezos that said, if you're using more than 70% of the information to make a decision, you're moving too slow. Wow. And that's more true now than it has ever been. Right. And just on that, this is just a random data point, but I think illustrates how fast customers were moving. In November of 22, so what is that, 7 months ago, call it, OpenAI had only 100 million visits to their website. They're now averaging 1.8 billion visits to their website a month. Wow. So if you think of the speed of adoption, the reason I say that is to give scale to the speed of adoption that customers and consumers are using for new technologies, for how they want to be interacted with. So this focus on speed is going to be critical. Right. We cannot let speed get in the way of being good advocates for our consumers. And then lastly, I think it comes back to this collaboration, but I'm going to add a piece to this. Sure. So this collaboration aspect that we talked about is very important. The next part of that is data. How are we using data at speed with collaborating retailer, supplier, agency together to make sure that we're making these decisions quickly and that we feel really good about, the fiduciary responsibilities that we're doing for our customers and for our that we're doing for our retailers, for our supplier base, and for our customer base. Because we got to make sure that we're managing our expenses well so that we can provide the lowest cost option to our customers, but we can't sacrifice investment to not serve our customer where they want to be served. Right.
Critical. Those are three critical steps. And wow, what a phenomenal conversation, Dallas, this morning. I want you to know how much I appreciate your insights. I really enjoyed talking about the customer's perspective. I love your thoughts around retailers and suppliers. What some great information. Now, I want you to come back.
I would love to come back.
Now, because what you're going to be doing most days of your life, you're going to be in depth focused on these things: suppliers, retailers, and the customers. Right?
That's right.
I mean, that's what you're going to get up to do every day.
That's right.
Okay. Well, you're going to learn things every day. You're going to grow. You're going to find success stories. You're going to find things that didn't work, but yet what worked, and all these challenges that lay ahead for our suppliers, for our retailers, and our customers. So I want you to come back and share these learnings with us. Okay. So hey, he's coming back. You heard him say it. He's going to come back.
I'm coming back.
So stay tuned. So we will have Dallas Counts back on very, very soon. Dallas, it's been such a pleasure.
This has been a pleasure and an honor. I've been so happy to be here. And Andy, if I can say one more thing, my wife is going to be so happy because I get so passionate about this, and she tends to be the ear that has to listen to me. So having a venue other than her, she's going to thank you. She's going to send you presents to allow me to have this opportunity so that she's not the only one that has to listen to me.
Well, let me just say, we're all about happy marriages around here. So, okay, there we go. We're gonna help you out there. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for listening today and watching today. We really appreciate you so much, all of our listeners. And let me tell you, you can find out a lot more information about Omnichannel on our website. Is dbbnwa.com. Also, check out wherever you get your spot. You can check out Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you get all of your streaming, your podcasts. That's where we will be. That's where we are. Stay tuned and check our website, and then subscribe to our website so you don't miss one episode that we've got coming to you, that you don't miss one article around all of our learnings on Omnichannel. Thank you again, Dallas. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Goodbye.